Well, hello, how are you? My name is Jeff. I'm so glad you could be with me today. And today we have a heck of a show for you. Maybe. I don't know. You know, normally I don't talk about the shorts that are shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000, but today I'm going to make an exception. During the episode, they had one on winter sports. It was called The Sports Parade Snow Thrills. It was from 1945, and the narrator talks of skiing as if it's a new sport, even though it's been around since the 19th century. And he says this.
Fast becoming one of the most popular of winter sports is skiing. And skiing is the correct pronunciation, they tell us.
Yeah, well, you're full of skit.
Was skiing ever called sheen? I mean, I've done a bit of search on the internet, and I can find nothing about this odd pronunciation. Now, whoever made this film obviously never heard of the sport before, and I'm wondering if those that he talked to were just messing with them, all giggling behind his back and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know what the deal with this film is. Anyway, today we're going to talk about a film that was first shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000 on August 14th, 1991. It was a 1956 American science fiction film, It Conquered the World, produced and directed by Roger Corman and starring Peter Graves, Lee Van Cleef, Beverly Garland, Sally Fraser, and many other wonderful people. This is the episode in which Joel, in an effort to get on Star Search when he gets back to Earth, pretends Crow is a ventriloquist's dummy. The Mads invent a hangman costume for Halloween, while Joel invents the Sony Seaman, a sort of a Walkman for listening to the smooth sounds of the ocean. Joel and the Bots do their own winter sports short, and then later, the group recreates the coffee scene from the film with an angry, bitter edge. The Bots get confused over the fact that James Arness and Peter Graves are brothers but have different names. They sing the Celebrity Sibling song, and we wind up with the gang eating as they watch the end of the film. Now, for those new to the show, while I'm talking about a film that was first shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000, I'm more talking about the film itself and not so much about Joel and the Bots' treatment of the film, though I think that if you watch the episode, you might learn a few interesting things about the making of this film. Every man its prisoner, every woman its slave. It conquered the world. You know, maybe every man was a prisoner and maybe every woman was a slave, but as far as conquering the world, I don't think it ever had a chance, but we'll get into more of that a bit later. Now, in 1954, James A. Nicholson, a sales manager for Real Art Pictures, and Samuel Z. Arkoff, an entertainment lawyer, formed a company called American Releasing Corporation, ARC. They basically bought low-budget independent films, usually with teenagers in mind, and packaged them as a double feature for drive-ins. In a couple of years, they started producing their own films, so they changed the name to American International Pictures, AIP. One of the first films they produced, It Conquered the World. The president of the new company, James Nicholson, was a huge science fiction fan, so he decided their first film should be one of that kind. He got together with special effects man Paul Blaisdell to come up with a new creature. Blaisdell lived from 1927 to 1983 and was an American painter, sculptor, and visual effects creator. He specialized in science fiction and B-horror films of the 1950s. Nicholson told Paul he wanted something that no one has ever seen before, something that was totally different. So when they decided to make the monster come from Venus, they did a little research, and current thoughts at the time were that Venus was hot, humid, and misty. So they thought that if life was going to come from that planet, it would probably be some sort of vegetable. Now Blaisdell thought a Venetian mushroom, and he thought without animal life, in a dark, damp world, it could evolve into some sort of intelligent creature. Of course, how would it reproduce? Well, how about if it gave birth to small bat-like creatures? When Blaisdell showed Nicholson a 10-inch model of the creature, Nicholson said, "You've done it again, Paul. There's never been anything like it." Lou Rustoff was hired to write the script. Lou lived from 1911 to 1963. Starting off in Canadian radio and television, he eventually moved to Hollywood and became a regular writer for AIP. He wrote such films as The Day the World Ended in 1955, The Sea Creature from 1956, Drag Strip Girls from 57, Hot Rod Gang from 58, and many more. It seems, however, that It Conquered the World wasn't one of his better efforts. Now, Roger Corman, the producer and director of the picture, wasn't happy with the script. He gave it to one of his regular writers, Charles B. Griffith, for a rewrite. Charles B. Griffith lived from 1930 to 2007. He wrote a lot of Roger Corman's B films with AIP. As Griffith said, Lou Russoff had a brother dying in Canada and he needed money, so he did this script, which was very confusing. Roger gave it to me and I had 3 days to rewrite it, so I started from scratch. Now, if I understand it correctly, Russoff was credited as the sole writer to help him out financially. Now, this creature they developed for the film has been the subject of fun for many people over the years. People have called it a carrot, a mushroom, or whatever. But when the cast walked on the set the first day, it was even worse. As Corman said, I reasoned that Venus would have a very heavy gravity, much heavier than Earth's, so the Venetian would have to be very low to the ground and massive, bulky. So we designed our monster that way. It was very low and squat. The first day we were supposed to shoot, Beverly Garland strolled up to our monster in between takes and, looking down at it, sneered. "So you've come to conquer the world, huh?" She let out this furious laugh. "Take that." And then she reared back and kicked our monster. Kicked it! I was dumbfounded. I called my key grip and told him, "Do something. Put something on the bottom of that thing. Make it bigger. You have the whole morning to fix it. I'll shoot around it for the afternoon." According to Garland, she said, "This is it? This is our monster? This funny looking carrot? It's so small I could have stepped on it and crushed it. It was so small and fat and it kind of waddled. It certainly didn't look scary to me." Still, the creature, when built up, was still laughable to most, but Garland said that Roger always considered this his favorite creature. And you notice you never see Garland and the creature in the same shot. This was to hide the fact it was so small. Corman considered this a lesson. He said, "In movies, the monster should always be bigger than the leading lady." This is a promo picture with Garland, and I think they exaggerated the creature a bit. Inside the carrot costume was Paul Blaisdell himself. There's a story that went around that the monster was supposed to be in the cave the whole time, hiding a bit in the shadows. But at one point, either somebody forgot the generator for the lights, or the generator broke. So that is why they were forced to bring it out into the daylight for the end of the picture. Maybe another day of work would have put the film over budget, who knows? Blaisdell wasn't too happy about that. According to Corman, it was a 10-day picture with a budget of around $80,000. At that time, that was pretty normal. The film opened on July 15, 1956 on a double feature with The Sea Creature. The film stars Peter Graves as Dr. Paul Nelson. Peter was born Peter Buchler Arness and lived from 1926 to 2010. Many people of my age will know Peter from the television series Mission Impossible from 1967 to 1973, and the documentary series Biography on A&E from 1987 to 1999. But years earlier, he was one of those actors who either starred in low-budget B films, played a minor character in bigger budget films, or appeared on TV. A few films that will appeal to this crowd are Red Planet Mars from 1952, Killers from Space from 1954, and Beginning of the End from 1957. Lee Van Cleef plays Dr. Tom Anderson. Lee was born Clarence Leroy Van Cleef Jr. and lived from 1925 to 1989. Lee had a long career both in TV and films, appearing in all types of things. I know him best from the spaghetti westerns he did, including For a Few Dollars More in 1965 and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly from 1966. And then, of course, there was Escape from New York in 1981. In Beverly Garland's biography, she talked about the difficulties working with Lee. She said, "I adore Lee Van Cleef, but it was difficult to work with him. He used to drive me crazy because he drank too much." She would go on to say that his drinking caused him to be very sweaty with horrible breath. And sometimes he would have problems remembering his lines, which made him sweat even more. She also said that he almost gave up acting due to his drinking, until he started to make those spaghetti westerns, which then made him a huge star. Speaking of Beverly Garland, she plays Claire Anderson. Beverly Lucy Fessenden lived from 1926 to 2008. She began on TV and did a lot of work with Roger Corman, including The Gunslingers from 56, Not of This Earth from 57, Naked Paradise also from 57, Swamp Diamonds from 58, and this film. She was also in the films New Orleans Uncensored from 1955 and The Alligator People from 1959. Her biggest role, however, was that of Barbara Harper Douglas in the American television sitcom My Three Sons from 1969 to 1972. Garland is one of those actors that, even in a film as ridiculous as The Alligator People, is just wonderful and a joy to watch. And lastly, we have Sally Fraser as Joan Nelson. Sally lived from 1932 to 2019. She had a very short acting career, mostly in TV, but she did star in 3 classic films from 1958, Giant from the Unknown, War of the Colossal Beast, and Earth vs. the Spider. After the 1960s, Sally decided to give up acting to raise a family on a cattle ranch in Idaho. A couple of honorable mentions. Roger Corman regulars Dick Miller and Jonathan Haze both appear in this movie. They're both wonderful, and I'm sure I'll talk about each of them in upcoming videos. And sadly, the world just lost Haze a couple of weeks ago. So what is It Conquered the World? This is the story of 2 happy couples, the Nelsons and the Andersons. They are best friends, but that friendship will be tested when a walking vegetable enters their lives. Can they handle it? You see, the trouble all started 2 months earlier when Paul, a scientist, was sending a satellite into outer space.
And man is finally ready to move into space.
Tom, well, he didn't think this was a very good idea and did his best to try to stop it. Even with all his angry passion, no one was listening.
I'm not arguing theory, General. I'm only telling you this. Alien intelligence watches us constantly. It will see this satellite of yours and know something must be done. I'm here to ask you, to beg you, to save your own world.
Stock footage away! A few months later, the 4 of them are having dinner. Everything seems right with the satellite, but Tom has a secret, and his wife, Claire, would rather him not talk about it.
Tom, please.
Honey, this is too big.
But you promised.
But he does anyway. He is hearing voices from Venus over his radio. But before he can get into any of the details, Paul gets a phone call, and it's not good news.
Well, that's impossible. Yes, I'll be right down.
Something wrong at the installation?
It's gone.
What's gone?
The satellite, it took off on a direct tangent into space. It's vanished.
So Paul and his wife have to quickly leave the dinner party. Paul needs to get to Space Command ASAP. Meanwhile, Claire isn't too happy with her husband. I mean, he just told their best friends that he's hearing voices from outer space.
You promised.
But when Paul gets to Space Command, mysteriously, the satellite that had just disappeared is now back. And they're gonna bring it down to Earth for an examination. You know, not even today can we return satellites to Earth. But this was a year before Sputnik, so I'll give the film a break. Tom is now talking to the Venetians.
Where are you? Yes. It's true, I am your only friend. Nobody else even knows you exist.
I'm really not quite sure how he understands what they're saying. But meanwhile, Claire is becoming more and more concerned over her husband's mental state.
Don't let it get a hold of you, Tom. You've dreamed and imagined for such a long time. Don't let your imagination bring itself to life.
But back at Space Command, there seems to be a problem bringing the satellite back to Earth.
Well, I don't know, General. The thing acts like it doesn't want to come down. Begin descent.
What's happening?
I don't know, General. It's behaving very erratically.
But the satellite didn't come down like expected. It crashed, and Tom thinks a Venetian was on board.
Yes, I hear you. He's alive, darling. He survived the crash.
Tom, you're a sick man.
The whole world's sick, darling. It always has been. But that's all over now.
And it appears Tom was right. Look at that thing. Scary, right? You know, I have my doubts that that thing could take over the world. But maybe they can, because they bring every man-made object to a halt. Paul and Joan's car quits like everything else. And then, after witnessing a plane crash, they decide to walk to Tom's home, which isn't far away. A warning here, the following scene of the alien might be too intense for younger or more sensitive viewers.
What's that?
Well, I'm not gonna stop to ask it.
A scientist sees something he can't identify, so he throws a rock at it.
You're Anderson. I read your stuff. You did this.
Let's punch the guy who tried to warn you about this. Mob mentality, am I right, folks? Watch out! I will point out that this came out the same year as Invasion of the Body Snatchers, so I don't think one film copied the other. So finally, both couples are back at the Anderson house, and Tom finally tells Paul the whole story, but Paul isn't buying it.
All right, let's assume you're right. A superior intelligence has come from Venus in my satellite, established residency, turned off the world's power, and is about to take over the world's population. Why aren't you fighting it? Because this superior intelligence happens to be a personal friend of mine. I believe he's here to rescue mankind, not to conquer it, as you have naturally concluded.
You see, the communists, I mean the Venetians, are going to fix all that's wrong with the Earth. But Tom sounds more like a child who's finally getting revenge on the bullies that picked on him in school.
I've been a continual victim of it myself. Stupidity, fear, greed. And the new arrival is going to end all of this? In so short a time, you hardly realize it's been done.
And for a while, nothing much happens. People wonder what's going on, and Tom keeps on talking to the enemy, thinking he's doing what's best for Earth. Suddenly, a mass evacuation is ordered by the Venetians. Okay, I get a little girl wanting to bring her doll, but this guy had to bring a saxophone? And look at that lady to the left. She's enjoying this whole thing. Paul leaves on a bicycle, and Joan, well, she meets one of the bats. I don't think that's good for Joan. And here we have the customary old man doesn't want to leave even though he was ordered to do so situation.
With gun or no gun, here I stay. I helped build this town. My paper got you your job for you, remember?
No need for papers now. They're not.
But Officer Bob has a quick solution.
Sorry, but I'm staying.
And this leaves Paul a little confused.
But I've known you for 5 years. You just killed a man in cold blood. Why?
His orders. I'll have to place you under protective custody.
Yeah, we know the cop's under the influence of the aliens. So Tom is still under the illusion that the world will be a better place when the alien removes all emotions from people. But what does his wife, Claire, think about that?
Tom, you can't rub the tarnish from men's souls without losing a little bit of the silver, too.
It has to be that way.
Tom, are you really ready to stop loving me?
Paul steals a jeep from an infected general and heads up to Tom's for a talk. He's being chased by one of those mind-altering bats, but a gun scares it away. He finally makes it to Tom's without being infected. They talk, and well, I guess they agree just to disagree.
I'm not convinced. Well, neither am I of your hypotheses. You will be. You must be. He wants you on his side.
So after Paul gives a passionate speech in which he accuses Tom of being a traitor to the whole human race, he leaves in anger. But Claire, well, she's got something to say.
Oh, you fool. Anybody who didn't care about you, who didn't believe there was still something in you worth trying to save, would have killed you on the spot.
Killed me?
Yes. Just as he'll find a way to kill your God.
Now, I'm not one to spread rumors, but I'm thinking the Andersons' marriage is in trouble. And that's a lot of this movie, right? Tom thinking he's doing what's right, and Paul and Clara telling him that he's a traitor to the whole human race. Paul returns home and his wife doesn't seem quite right.
Guess what I've got?
What?
A present for you.
So Joan leaves to let the bat deal with Paul. But remember, the actor playing Paul is Peter Graves, and he doesn't take crap from no flying bats. So Paul knows that his wife is infected, but he's a man of science. Surely he's going to find a way to cure her, because maybe there's a drug or something that... Oh, I guess he's just going to shoot her. Paul's a busy man. He has a lot going on right now. He doesn't have time to help his wife. And what would a 1950s movie be if we don't get to see a lady in her negligee. It seems that they have used up all their bats, and since they're out, this lady gets strangled. To make a long story short, Claire has had enough.
Look, I don't know whether you can hear me or not, but if you can, you listen good. I hate your living guts for what you've done to my husband and my world. I know you for the coward you are, and I'm gonna kill you. Do you hear that? I'm gonna kill you.
You tell him, girl. And I just want to stop here and say, I guess Dick Miller and Jonathan Haze are supposed to be the comic relief, but, Mr. Haze, that Mexican accent, no.
All right, I'll go wrestle some chickens.
Paul confronts Tom again, and Tom begins to see the truth.
Have I reached you?
Maybe. Some, I don't know.
Am I still gonna have to kill you?
I was supposed to kill you. His orders.
Okay, let's agree not to kill each other. Meanwhile, Claire takes things into her own hands.
So that's what you look like. You're ugly, horrible. Go on. Try your intellect on me.
It was a brave attempt, Claire. You failed, but at least your heart was in the right place. And now the two men are working together. They're gonna fight the creature. Jonathan Haze hears screaming and goes to investigate, only to run away to get help. And Paul is done messing around. Now you have the army, or should I say a handful of army men, and Paul and Tom going after this strange mushroom dude. And I guess the general that Paul shot isn't dead. He just got hit in the arm. And it's one of those strange bloodless wounds. But Paul finishes the job and steals the Jeep. I'm assuming Tom knew for sure that policeman was controlled by the carrot before he roasted him alive. And when the creature leaves the cave, the army guns do no good. But Tom still has his flamethrower.
I made it possible for you to come here. I made you welcome to this earth. You made it a charnel house.
Either Graves is very tall or Miller is very short. And so the alien and his stooge both die together, and Paul wraps it up with this message.
You learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. And because of it, the greatest in the universe. And he learned too late for himself that men have to find their own way to make their own mistakes. There can't be any gift of perfection from outside ourselves. And when men seek such perfection, they find only death, fire, loss, disillusionment, and the end of everything that's gone forward. Men have always sought an end through toil and misery. When it can't be given, it has to be achieved. There is hope, but it has to come from inside, from man himself.
Powerful stuff there. And you know, this was Roger Corman's first film on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and it wouldn't be his last. I enjoyed this film, but I have a thing for these low-budget B-1950 sci-fi horror films. They just tickle me. But in this case, I think there's a bit too much talking. I mean, the arguing between Beverly Garland and Lee Van Cleef, then Peter Graves and Lee Van Cleef, it gets to be a bit much. I mean, we get it, Charles B. Griffith. Free will is important. And all the actors, I think, act their hearts out. The conflict between characters is convincing. There are lines, of course, that are laughable, and I'm sure that's not what the writers had in mind, but it adds a certain charm to the film. Now, Corman's direction is efficient and sometimes clever. I mean, the way he has characters move around the scene, the blocking, if you will, keeps long takes from becoming visually static. And the idea for this film is a solid one. Much more than Attack of the Crab Monster or Not of This Earth, films that Corman would make the following year. The music for this film was also effective. It was composed by Ronald Stein. Ronald lived from 1930 to 1988, and he was an American film composer. Ronnie, as he was known to his friends, composed some fantastic music for many forgettable films. He truly was a great but overlooked composer. One of my favorites was the theme to the marvelous film Spider Baby.
Screams and moans, and bats and bones, and teenage monsters in haunted homes. A ghost on the stair, a vampire's bite. I better beware, there's a full moon tonight.
He wrote scores for many AIP pictures during the 50s and 60s, and the next time you watch one of these films, check out the music. These include Gunslinger, The She Creature, Attack of the Crab Monster, Invasion of the Saucermen, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, Hot Rod Gang, The Premature Burial, and so many more. For today's obscure reference, we have this joke.
I'll paint any car for $49.99.
Walk up to his place.
Earl Shives owned a car body and repair company that would advertise that they could paint any car, any color for one low cost. No ups and no extras.
I'm Earl Shive. I'll paint any car, any color for just $99.95. No ups and no extras.
Now this is a short film, a little over an hour long, so Mystery Science Theater 3000 showed the complete episode. But if you want to see it without the jokes, it is available on YouTube right now. But how long will it be there? I'm not sure, because this is another film that's being held up by Susan Hart. Now, if you want more information on that, see my Amazing Colossal Man show that I did a few weeks ago. Now, why don't we watch the best of this episode from Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Do not adjust your set. We can make it stupid.
Oh, they're giving away the ending.
Of course.
Wait a minute, that's James Arness.
Oh, that's Peter Graves.
Oh, the elevator's broken!
I stepped into the wrong room!
Oh, great. It's a giant plastic pickle.
With thorns.
Dill? Well, out of gas, honey. Now would be a good time to tell you about biography on A&E. Does this bug you? Does this bug you? I'm not touching you. Does this bug you? Ha!
Get moving. Hurry.
Over my dead... Oh. Oh. Don't start with me, Martha.
You laughed your ass off, George.
Think about it, the lights work.
Lights work, Peter.
I think James Arness was the smart one.
Hey, that drawer works.
Where do you go today? Get us there.
Peter, the lights. Idiot.
Honey?
Oh,
Corky gets into another fix.
Oh, I should have brought a wrap. It's so cold.
Thon? Etor? Kuma?
It's a safety cone gone horribly wrong.
Eat it all.
Say,
Darn, I always miss the good parties.
they leave these things everywhere, don't they? You were all bad guys, weren't you?
I always knew I'd make a better cowboy than my brother.
Huh?
Be all that you can be? I don't think so.
It's Sigmund the Sea Monster! Stupidest looking thing. Oops.
Smucker's jelly always tastes the freshest.
Bad carrot. Bad. Cool. James Arness will be back in Sweetbacks. Badass
Peter
songs.
Graves.
Well, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I do, and I want to give a special shout out to all those that helped me a couple weeks ago with that thing that I promised I wouldn't mention again, at least for a while. I will tell you that the magic number is now 19. Anyway, in 2 weeks I'll be talking about the 1958 independently made black and white science fiction film by Bert I. Gordon, Earth vs. the Spider. For those keeping track, I am skipping another Gamera movie. And I'll tell you right now, I really like this movie. Anyway, you take care, stay healthy, and I'll be back in 2 weeks with something that will change your life. Or